Cross-site scripting attacks are basically a variation of input validation attacks. Cross-site scripting attacks exist due to poor programming and a lack of validation of HTML code for both input and output purposes. They are not aimed at the application though. Now, unlike the SQL injection attacks and the regular input validation attacks that we discussed earlier, which were aimed at gaining illegal access to the target computer, the cross-site scripting attacks are not aimed at gaining illegal access to the target computer. Instead, they're actually aimed at other clients who use that particular website or who use that particular application or who actually visit that application or website. In other words, cross-site scripting attacks are not aimed at the application which is exploited or the remote host, but rather they are aimed at other clients or other users who visit or use that particular application or web page or website. For example, an attacker can post a malicious code on a message board such that all visitors reading that particular post get affected. In other words, say for example, you want to create a virus or you want to create a spyware or an adware or any sort of malicious piece of code which will cause mass destruction, mass damage. What do? Now, cross-site scripting attacks provide you a great platform to actually infect a popular web page or infect a popular message board or infect maybe a popular online forum or mailing list or any web page on the internet, invite other users to connect to that particular web page, forum, message board or mailing list, and as soon as they view that particular HTML page or view that particular web page or message post, immediately the client or the user's computer will be infected and will be damaged. So in such attacks, an attacker inserts malicious HTML and scripting code. It could be JavaScript, VBScript or any of the other scripting languages into a variable or into existing HTML code on a web page. Next time when an unsuspecting victim visits that particular web page, the malicious code inserted by the attacker automatically gets executed and affects or infects the victim. Now, some examples of the most commonly used malicious code or most commonly techniques of infecting any user visiting that particular website are, say for example, it is actually possible to display an error message or display an alert as soon as a particular event occurs. It is possible to inject code into an image using the image src tag. It is also possible to run a malicious piece of code automatically as soon as a web page is loaded using the onload scripting variable. So how can you as an attacker actually carry out cross-site scripting attacks? Malicious code can be planted into a website or an email or automatically executed each time a vulnerable client visits that particular web page or email in the following manner. First of all, malicious code can be embedded in the form of message boards, guest books, forums, blogs, polls and form inputs. It is also possible to embed malicious code into links. It is also possible to insert or embed malicious code into images, videos and other multimedia. At this point of time, I like to give a small demonstration as to how malicious code or how cross-site scripting attacks, very basic, can actually be executed using simple HTML code. Cross-site scripting attacks, countermeasures. So what are the various countermeasures that must be kept in mind as far as preventing or defending against cross-site scripting attacks is concerned? First of all, it is extremely important for every single web designer to filter out all special characters like what have been displayed on the screen to prevent any malicious script from being executed. Another very good countermeasure is that all source code or all scripting code which appears in the form of a web page or which appears within an HTML web page should be displayed as it is. In other words, if you are a web designer or if you maintain a particular blog or a website or a particular message board, then any code which is inserted by the user should be displayed as it is. What this is going to do is, if say for example there's a form on your website, normally if you do not use this countermeasure, then the attacker can actually, in the input fields within that form, insert the input, but at the same time the attacker can actually insert certain malicious scripts which will be executed when any other user visits that particular web page, or visits that particular message board, or visits that particular blog. Instead, what you should do is, if you're the system admin of that web page, the countermeasure that you must implement is, whatever data has been entered by any user in your form on your website should be displayed in the output as it is. Even if there is some malicious scripting code which is inserted or input by any malicious user, that should only be displayed as it was inserted. It should not be executed.